Well, I a little
Thing.
longer-winded than I would like to be, but so I'm going to carry on and finish the story about the propane accumulation because it does vent. There is a venting process to these cans. You don't want the pressure from heat or anything else to build up too much in these cans. So they vent a little tiny bit, but it was excessive, I smelled, and I went down to investigate, and kaboom. But I wasn't seriously injured. I mean, I was scorched, my eyelashes, eyebrows, all that crap, my hair, excuse me, was scorched. But other than that, I wasn't seriously injured. I mean, maybe light burns and that sort of thing, my face, hands, or something like that. But, it wasn't so bad that I had to go to get medical assistance. But it was traumatic. Now, I forgot that when I was 8 years old in 1966, 67, it would have been early 67 or 66, when my house burned up. 308 Caledonia Street. I remember the address to this day. And that was traumatic. My family was out. I went to a movie. It was a Batman playing at the drive-in, I think. And so my sisters and I, my mom and dad, went to the drive-in that night. And when we came back, the house was burned. And apparently it was an electrical short or something. So, they always investigate these things. But we ended up, my dad said, you know what, he was fed up with living in the country. It was, at that time, JFK had been assassinated. He wrote a book, a very controversial book he titled Apple Pie, and had an artist rendition of a big apple pie and a mockery of Uncle Sam and the rather sordid American values. He was opposed to the war in Vietnam. He was never a long hair, so to speak, the hippie like. He actually was a Marine at a very young age. He served during the Second World War on the battleship Iowa. He was a boxer in the Marine Corps, got the nickname of Nails Credit. Apparently, he was pretty badass, and I would vouch for that. I know he was kind of an intimidating man, just his persona all his life. I don't think he ever got the Marine out, but the badass. But he had a very tough upbringing too, so he's kind of a miracle. He very much of an anomaly, an enigma, very charismatic, dynamic character, and he likes to be remembered as a poet above all, and he was a great poet. I mean, great thinker, but he struggled because he had this multiple sclerosis, which of course is a neurological disease. So it was temperamental, and I mean, the pain could come on at no time, and so it's a mood-altering disease, and spinal column or something. But he built that boat that we were on. Well, of course, you get help. I remember he got some of my sister's, his daughter's teenage boyfriends hang around. And one guy, he just was a hanger. He wasn't a boyfriend, but he let him sleep on the boat while it was being built. Because they build these things upside down. So it was a trimaran with a lot of room underneath. And Kenny, I remember he liked to sleep under there. He was an all right guy. All the guys back then were tough guys, hard guys, they called them. And it was so standard for guys in high school. You wore leather belts, and you wore a buck knife on your side, and you wore army boots, and you had to be an intimidating character. That's where the whole pit bull carrying thing came along, and these guys would get into fighting their dogs and crazy stuff. So, my sisters, as all teenage girls, they have an inclination to go to the bad boys. And or one time he caught two of these guys up in, we had to come a split level house there in the town of Felton. It's in the Santa Cruz Mountains, the San Lorenzo Valley. My parents were running a health food store back then. And, but he caught these two guys in my teenage sister's bedrooms, and he threw them, two of these teenage tough guys, with the buck knives, together down the stairs. I was scared he was going to kill them. But he just threw their asses right down the stairs, and I'll never forget that. But I never saw any guy stand up to him. I understand one time though, this big guy got the better of him. My dad was playing a gag with this guy about Indian finger wrestling, and it's don't do it. It's a scam. It's made up. Because all depending on how you hold the guy's finger, you could break it pretty easily. And my dad got his finger broken. Long story short, he was out at this Italian restaurant in Santa Cruz back in the 70s. And I think that helped. It's the kind of stuff my dad kind of needed to know he wasn't the toughest guy on earth. But I never saw anybody, challenge him into a fight or anything like that because he was very much of a badass. I think that Marine in him just, he was pretty much a archetypal Marine in the spirit. But, I rejected it. I remember telling him once that, the intimidating attitude was going to die with him because I didn't want my dad. I mean, the big guys, you got to understand, all you big guys out there, you got to be puppy dogs among men. You know that. You know you've got to be gentle giants because otherwise you intimidate men. It's very easy just because of your size, your stature. You know that. I mean, and that's what I found most of my life. The biggest guys have been the sweetest guys. I knew this guy in Boulder Creek. I got a friend in Boulder Creek, and I visit once in a while and go into the local gas station slash, mini mart slash coffee joint, and you get it to go, but you can hang around and talk. The management's usually pretty amiable. And but met this guy Herman. He had to be 6'8" if he was an inch, but Herman. And I know there's a Mount Herman in the San Lorenzo Valley, and it made me think of him. And I mentioned that to him because he was huge, and he had to weigh solid 350, possibly even a little more, but he was huge. But he was such a sweet guy, and I remember I was having some trouble, and I was talking to him about stuff. You know how people will do, commiserate. Oh, woe is me, and this and that issue. And I remember talking about this one guy that was giving me a hard time, and had to keep an eye on him because my little girls were around him. And he said, "Hey, you want me to go visit this guy? You say the word." I mean, and the guy was in Vegas, 500 miles away or something. And it's like, no, Herman, it's just, I appreciate it. It feels good, but, and that's as far as it needs to go with the big guys because this is a natural order. It's just the way it is, the nature of the beast, the male, we're a lot like other male of the species, we're kind of warrior-like. I mean, we're kind of all badass. We're all, we got our. It's kind of like King Solomon alluded to this. When it comes to something like a guy's wife, he's willing to die for her. So, like that song by Leonard Skinner, and Give Me Three Steps, and I mean, Bad Bad Leroy Brown by Jim Croce, right? We know, and King Solomon talked about these things. Any guy with two brain cells rubbed together knows you don't mess with another guy's girlfriend, much less his wife. Okay, even as a teenager, I instinctively knew this. It's just a violation of the bro code, I mean, it's like not cool, man. You don't, there's lots of fish in the sea. Why are you after mine? Okay, leave her alone. Don't try to tempt her at a time when she's feeling weak and vulnerable. Which is what a lot of guys want, though. They want that. Something about the married woman. They should compromise her, and they can defile her, and they can steal this guy's joy. There's some power trip, sick power trip. They call it the Messiah complex, I think. That there's a lot of these guys out there. So guys, don't think there's not a lot of dudes just because you would never move in on another guy's girl. It doesn't mean there's not a whole slew waiting in line to do that. Just remember that. So you and her need to have a talk about these things. A deep heart-to-heart, soul-to-soul talk if you want to avoid it. Because it does wreak disaster in all relationships. Believe me. It does. It just can't help it. It just does. Both ways. There's no getting back at somebody and even in the score. None of that crap works. It's just believe me. And the female it has the power. Girls rule. It's just natural order. It's just the way it is. And that's what guys have to suck it up. And you just say, God, I'm so heartbroken. I took a chainsaw, cut me in half. I know. I've been there. I know that feeling. You still got to say, God, just give me the strength, wherewithal to carry on, and let this thing go. And you let go of her, and you bless her as best you can, because you're not always going to feel so loving and forgiving. You're going to feel betrayed. Okay, you're going to feel disillusioned. You're going to feel like half a man, and there's no coming back from some of this stuff. It's not, you don't just replace, just like a pet. You don't just go out, oh, I'll find another girl. I mean, some guys do, and I kind of am jealous of those guys. I wish I found it that easy. All these girls want me. Women, all the available women. You say it's so single women, every fish in the sea and all that. But the first cut is the deepest, like they say. And, there's just no replacing some things. You're just not that simple. So, heartbreak is real. It's very, very powerful. Passions, jealousy. So, we got to respect each other and not do these things. And it's, it is equal. I mean, the relationship between the male of the gender and the female is, we both know what intense pain is. The stemming from love, feelings of love. That's the most powerful force in the universe, more powerful than money. Okay? Money doesn't have to be involved for some guy to kick some guy's butt for screwing around with his wife. Okay, that happens every day of the week. King Solomon talked about that. Blows and disgrace are his lot, and his shame will not be blotted out. I mean, are you living by the golden rule? It's that simple. If you don't want some guy dinking your girlfriend or wife, then don't dink his. Duh. Or what can you expect? You think you got some girl and that's what you want? You want fidelity and loyalty to you? What goes around comes around. You sow to the wind, you reap the whirlwind. So it's twice as painful for you because you could feel like you deserved it. So it just makes sense. It's logical to be a nice human being and live by the golden rule. But I digress because I was still talking about incidents, close calls with fire. But that was traumatic. I remember my dad had a few things put away, like important documents in some fireproof box, and my birth certificate. To this day, it smells like the fire from 1966 or early 67. I can't remember when our house burned down. But we ended up moving. My dad wanted to live in the Virgin Islands, but it was overwhelmingly black, and they felt that they were prejudiced. They didn't like them, didn't want them there. So he took the family. We lived in England, the Isle of Wight. I lived in Ryde, and for nearly a year, went to school there. That was fun. Learned to play marbles. That was fun. But one time I said bloody, and I got in trouble because apparently that's like saying the F word here. And I was I guess I was 8 years old, and got sent to the headmaster, which is the principal in England. It was fun. I loved it. It was like there was quaint villages and all this crap back then. England was like, it still had a taste of what it must have been like centuries before. These little mom and pop stores everywhere, ye old this, ye old that, and God, it was great, man. I loved the English comic books, and going to the theater, the matinees and stuff as a kid. Just, the kids could go alone and go watch these very family-friendly movies that the parents weren't even at sometimes, and fun. It was great time. I had a great childhood. Adventurous. My dad was adventurous. But he bought a fixer-upper boat there in Sussex or Essex. I can't remember where, but he and I had to take a train the trains were everywhere back there, and ferries and that sort of thing. We fixed it up. I used to go to bars when I was 9, 10 years old and play darts, and he let me drink. I guess it was legal back then, but that's probably why I don't have a problem with alcohol to this day. Let me barf. He thought it was funny when I was puking my guts out at 10 years old. He got a kick out of that because he thought that would dissuade me from being an alcoholic, problem drinker. And I guess it might have worked. But we fixed up that boat, and we sailed a lot. My mom and sisters, they had a lot more stability. They wanted to just fly to places where we would meet up, and they'd get on the boat for a short period of time, like in Paris. Because my dad and I took the boat across the English Channel with a crewmate, Timothy. And that was quite an event. I almost died then. I've got PTSD from a very early age. I thought for sure we were dead out in the English Channel. So really nasty, nasty ocean conditions out there. It's like vortexes and different oceanic forces conject, and it's like they come together there, and there's a confluence, I guess you'd call it, of different oceanic forces, and it makes for some very choppy seas. And almost died out there when I was 9. My dad and Timothy were drunk, the crewmate Timothy, and we're gonna die out here, Dick. Oh, and I'm 9 years old, puking my guts out below deck. It was a scene.